Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 89. Can you believe it? 89 of the Free to Hope presents 12 Steps Applied to COVID-19. Yes, I can smile in the midst of the storm. Why? Because of these 12 spiritual principles that were created and developed by Alcoholics Anonymous over 80 plus years ago. I do not represent Alcoholics Anonymous, but I've been a proud and humble member for 31 years as of February the 23rd of 2021. And so FREE stands for From Recovery, Emerge, Empowered to do what? To give hope to others, help others prosper equally. Not only did my higher power deliver me from drugs and alcohol and the lifestyle 31 years ago, he saved me and 7 of my family members from the devastating fatality of COVID-19. So therefore, I and my family are so forever grateful that God spared our lives, because we know the outcome has been different from other people. But the question is right now, who woke you up this morning? Who woke me up this morning? I know. Who breathed life into your vessel this morning? Who breathed life into my vessel this morning? I know. And for that alone, we should give acknowledgement to our Creator, who knows the beginning, the middle, and the end of this COVID-19 pandemic. But he offers a solution, and the solutions are in the 12 steps. So before we go any further, we want to give our Creator our 30 seconds of silence just to say thank you for allowing us to be here this moment, allowing us to breathe, allowing us to smell, taste, feel, hear, see, but the goal is to listen. So we want to pay homage to our Creator, as well as those who have transitioned from COVID-19, those who are left behind of losing loved ones from COVID-19, those who are on their bed this second with the possibility of it being their last breath, for those who are suffering through COVID-19, those who are doing the next right thing regarding COVID-19, those who are providing intervention on behalf of those with COVID-19, and yes, those who are still defiant, stubborn, egotistical. Yes, have that attitude of it won't happen to me, being invincible. Yes, we must pray for them too. So, in other words, we want to give a moment of silence to our Creator and to the entire human race. Join me for just 30 seconds with a moment of silence. Thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the things that I know from being a part of the 12-step program, that Gamblers Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, Overeaters Anonymous, Al-Anon Anonymous, all of those anonymous groups all chose the same 12 spiritual principles created by Alcoholics Anonymous. So we have been presenting to you how we can benefit from the wisdom of these 12 steps program as outlined by Dr. Scott T. Allison and Jason Waller and myself, and our experience, strength, and hope, and presenting these 12 steps that are spiritual in nature to help you, and you be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. We can, we will, we must stop the perpetuation of this COVID-19, its impact, its effects, its outcome, and its fatalities. But we can do it if we are in the prevention mode of COVID-19, the intervention mode of COVID-19, or the restoration mode of COVID-19, or are we being proactive, inactive, reactive, or are we being responsible for COVID-19? Only you can answer that question. And so in our fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, we recognize and we've been told that some of us must die in order for some of us to live. Why? Because some of us are just constitutionally incapable of being honest with oneself, right? But they're not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. And so the same thing applies to COVID-19. I don't know what it is, but then I do know what it is because I'm one of the ones who was defiant, rebellious, stubborn, selfish, self-centered with the information. How you like that? I had the 12-step programs for over 30 years and practicing them in all my affairs, but chose not to apply them to COVID-19, which is why I know I contributed to contracting COVID-19 and infecting members of my family. But through the grace of God, we survived COVID-19, and my family is doing well. However, we are still practicing the simple suggestions of the CDC. Wash your hands, wear a mask, social distancing, contact tracing, get tested, and get vaccinated. So I'm going to show you my vaccination shot in a few minutes that I got my second dose of the Pfizer vaccine. All right, so what I want to do right now is acknowledge my sponsors before we go on. If you would like to be one of my sponsors, please contact me so you can also be advertised. All right. So here are my sponsors. All right. Let's see here. Okay. We have MDB Associates, Dr. Mary Douglas Bailey. She does counseling, therapy centered around mental illness, substance abuse, using a holistic approach. Patchwork Human Services, LLC by Ebony Madry. She also does counseling, therapy, facilitate groups, and does an awesome job with presentations. Levante and Dorsey and Associates. She works very well with children and family around any and all issues. Academy of Peace, a place where you can express yourself, a place where you can unwind, and a place where you can present workshops, seminars, events in the name of peace. My friend, Dr. J. Macklin. Also, Crafty Crab Seafood, the newest restaurant here in Wilmington, Delaware. The food is awesome. Free to Hope, from recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. Women do haul transportation. She became legal yesterday. I went and got my plates, and you listen, I tell you, God is awesome. I need to stop right there. Okay. When I went to get my plates for my my little mini bus, right? And they gave me the tag, and the tag said it was dated March the 3rd, 2023. And when I saw March 23, that reminded me of my mom. Her birthday is March the 23rd. So I just had to put that in there for a second, right? So let's go back to our sponsors. Mr. C's Barbershop, he's responsible for my hair. Morgan of Delaware, Lady T at Morgan's of Delaware, my African attire, jewelry by Catherine Butler, as well as Devon Light. So if you want to become a sponsor, all you have to do is contact me with the information below. Email edwina.bell@yahoo.com or 302-690-6679. The information is free to the public. However, I do need sponsors to help upgrade equipment, to get on additional platforms so that we can get the word out that we can, we will, we must stop the perpetuation of this devastating pandemic, okay? So now I want to be able to share with you, before I go on, that the month of March, we know, is Women's Month, they said. And there are two women that have set the stage for my life from the beginning up until now. And that is my mother, Helen Jones Hall Lamar Taylor. Where are you, Mom? Wait a minute, y'all. She done went over here somewhere. Oh, mother. All right. So, in honor of Women's Day, I want to honor my mother. Yes. Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor. That's her laying in bed before she transitioned on May the 6th of 2016. looking up to the heavens and say, Lord, take care of this child. Take care of this one. Moments to cherish. All right. And I also want to give acknowledgement to my Aunt Margaret. That's her picture over here as well. Here she is, right? And with her, I learned a lot and have been deemed her daughter because I look so much like her. But it was these two women that played an awesome part in my some bad. All right. So in honor of Women's Month, I do want to recognize my mother, Helen Jones Lamar Hard Taylor, and Margaret Matilda Kemp Williams. All right. So I mentioned to you Dr. Scott T. Allison, and I first want to acknowledge my resources that I got. You listen, I know all about plagiarism and all that kind of stuff, so I ain't trying to get in no trouble, right? So I want to say to you that I used the resources from Dr. Scott T. Allison's article in Psychology Today that was published on March 31st of 2020, as well as Jason Waller breaking down the 12 steps. Please go to these resources, look up the information, print them, and work alongside with me as we do these 12 spiritual principles. So let's find out what Dr. Scott T. Allison focuses on. In his article, they are letting go of control, patience, keeping the focus on oneself, trust, living in the present, social connections, and service to others. Awesome points that he made from an Al-Anon approach, but using the same 12 recovery principles. All right. So let's go to our next slide, which are the recovery principles, right? So many of you heard about them, need to be reminded of it, and need to see how we apply it from alcohol, drugs, sex, overeaters to COVID-19. They can be applied to every aspect of our lives. The one, we admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That's only soundness of mind regarding COVID-19. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him regarding COVID-19. Made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves regarding COVID-19. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs regarding COVID-19. 6, were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character regarding COVID-19. And number 7, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings regarding COVID-19. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all regarding COVID-19. And 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others, even you, regarding COVID-19. And 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it regarding COVID-19. And 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for the knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out regarding COVID-19. And 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to others regarding COVID-19 and practice these principles in all our affairs. Now, if you ever go to an AA meeting or an Al-Anon meeting, we all read the same material, which is the foundation of that particular meeting. So repetition is crucial in the 12-step program because we never know when the student becomes ready and the teacher needs to appear. We don't know when students are ready to go to the next level, so additional teachers can appear. So the whole point of repetition is for us to constantly generate positive and spiritual habits based on this spiritual program that are exemplified in these 12 spiritual principles. All right, so I also want to share with you that during the month of February was when I celebrated 31 years in recovery, and today is 89 days surviving COVID-19. I did not apply these 12 principles initially back in November and December of 2020, but because God spared my life and spared the lives of my loved ones, I am sharing them with you so that you can lead by example as well. I also want to share with you how doing my own research about the vaccination and asking questions and getting information to make my own decision, dispelling any myths or rumors. And I decided to get vaccinated in my church, Canaan Baptist Church, where Dr. Christopher Allen Bullock and First Lady Dr. Debbie Bullock, I saw that they got their second shot yesterday. And it was Reverend Daniels who called me and said, guess what, Edwina? Canaan came up to the plate, sending his sheep to get tested, and you need to join the bandwagon. Honey, I got up, put my clothes on, and went. Didn't get tested that time, but I was able to schedule an appointment to get tested. So let me show you my second and final dose of the Pfizer vaccine.
Look at it. She's at the red button. Gotcha. All right. Look at it. She's at the red button. Gotcha. All right. Okay. Let's get you a little shot of hope here, my dear.
Yes, dear. Yes.
There you go.
Now, I didn't even feel that one. Hard to believe, right?
Did it.
Sit for 15 minutes?
15 minutes.
Oh,
Okay?
righty. Good.
And you'll be out the door.
All right.
All righty.
Can we get a still picture?
Yes.
Sure.
Let me take my glasses off.
Do you want me to stop recording or still record? Okay.
Dr. Joan Coker, right? She's the one who administered the test to me. And I'm just so grateful that I have been obedient when I wasn't obedient with the CDC suggestion. So after getting my shot yesterday, my arm just a little sore. I woke up with a sore throat, not too much, but I'm watching the symptoms and I'm going to be transparent with you because what you see now, I do not look like what I've been through. In case you missed the opening picture, I want to show you what COVID-19 looked like on me. On one side is me back in November and December, and the other side is when I started improving. And what you see now is the direct result of continuing to practice the CDC suggestions. All right, so this is a morning recovery conversation. It's a recovery conversation in general. All right, so we want to be able to share with you the information that's available. All right, so let's see what we have done so far as we continue the second part of the presentation. I'll call it the morning conversation, and it's all focused on the 12 spiritual principles. All right, so let me do this. I want to emphasize how important it is for you to go back to April the 1st when I started my 12-step apply to COVID-19 recovery conversation. And I played part 1 of it yesterday. I want to continue with playing part 2. This is me actually presenting to the public, which is free. Didn't have any sponsors at the time, so you can see what the made-up studio looks like compared to what it is now. But this will give you an idea as to what you can review from April the 1st up until now. All of the episodes are uploaded on Facebook, YouTube, and any additional platforms that I can use to get the information out. So this is part 2 of day 1 of the Free to Hope presentation, okay? So let me take this off. All right, let me take this off. And let me start here. Okay. Listen, and listen. Principles have. All right, wait a minute, y'all. Qualified me to share only my experience, my strength, and my hope with whoever will listen. And so my goal is to give hope. particularly during this month of April, but hope every day, every minute of the day to give hope. And the acronym for hope for me is help others prosper equally. Do you hear that? I have the acronym for FREE, from recovery, emerge empowered, utilizing the 12 recovery principles in order to give hope to anyone and everyone who needs it, who desires it, who wants it. And hope is help others prosper equally. Since the 12 recovery program has helped me to prosper, it is my duty and my obligation to share it with you. And so here's our morning cup of coffee, and we're going to get into an overview of what you're going to be learning, if you will, the next 29 days starting today. Okay? So, I must also say that even though this is a spiritual program, I do belong to a church, Canaan Baptist Church. I've been in recovery for 30 years, but I've only been affiliated with the choice of my practice religion by attending Canaan Baptist Church in Newcastle, Delaware, where my shepherd is the one and only Dr. Christopher Allen Bullock and First Lady Dr. Debbie Bullock. But I've only been a member there for 15 years. Yes, but I've been in recovery for 30 years. And so I need to start off with that foundation first. Many of you may have been like me or are like me, where I had and heard about God, if you will, and the 12 recovery principles don't give you a God. They allow you to find your own if you choose to. And so when was growing up, I was given a God. And I was told that if you are a bad girl, God is going to get you. And so I grew up believing that God was a punishing God, and I didn't know, and I didn't even want no parts of him, it, her, the force, whatever they called it. And so, but it was through the 12 recovery principles that I was able to acknowledge, learn, and seek the God of my understanding. And in the beginning, we called that God and higher power. So I was taught, and I want to be using the word I and then we. Okay, so I is basically what I've experienced, and I'm talking about those who have experienced and utilized the 12 recovery principles. So I'm going to get into that a little more later because this is just an overview. So during these next few days, I will be talking to you about how spiritually I've been developed and continue to be developed through utilizing the 12 recovery principles. But I've only been affiliated with the choice of my religious tradition with Canaan Baptist Church, Dr. Christopher Allen Bullock and Dr. Debbie Bullock. And so there's a story behind that, okay? As you can see, through the 12 recovery principles, I have been prepared, unbeknownst to me, to be a speaker, a facilitator, a trainer, a recovery coach, and guess what? Even an actress and a model. Yes, yes. So there's more behind that story as well, because the 12 recovery principles helped me to develop into being a change agent in all of those areas, just to be an attraction to other people. Yes. Coming from an addiction and being in recovery for these last 30 years. Yes. Okay. So, I don't know what else God has and is preparing for me, but He knows I'm willing. Okay. I also have a talk show in the Newcastle County of Delaware, and it's called Choosing a New Way of Life. How did I become a talk show host? Through the 12 recovery principles. I had no idea that I had the gift and the qualifications, the character, the know-it-all to be a talk show host. But guess what? Through the 12 recovery principles, I have been able to own and host my own talk show called Choosing a New Way of Life. And if you hear what the title is, Choosing a New Way of Life. Just like we choose to change our attitude, we choose to be a better person, we choose to do the right thing. So we still have choices. And so through the 12 recovery principles, for me, naming my TV show called Choosing a New Way of Life was appropriate. And I'll be talking to you more about that as well. I am also the mother of 2 children. My son is Dr. Dwight Kenneth Dockery II. Yes, my son is a doctor. Through the 12 recovery principles, me applying these principles in my life had a ripple effect in my children's life. And guess what? As you learn these 12 recovery principles, they will have a ripple effect in your children's life and those around you. And we'll show you how as we go through the 12 recovery principles. But right now, this is just about qualifying myself, letting you know that I've been prepared to do this task, and most importantly, to give you hope. To give you hope and to let you know that we can be free from any and all things that bind us. From recovery, emerge empowered. Yes. My son has been a doctor for the last 7 years, and he works with at-risk youth who can relate to him, and he can relate to them because he was once one of them by being the son of a mother that was addicted and to a father who occasionally used, but I was the addict. And he talks with and teach those youth that because your parents had an addiction or going through any kind of adversity doesn't mean you have to. Okay? And so he's been working there as the assistant principal for the last he's had his doctorate for the last 7 years, but he's been working with these kids since he graduated from high school. It's a beautiful thing. My daughter, Kenesha Edwina Treasure Dockery, is the CEO of her own construction company. Yes. Yes. And she's a top level manager with the license and inspection department with the city of Philadelphia. Again, as a result of me utilizing the 12 recovery principles, had a ripple effect with my children because they saw me go through an addiction. They were there before, during, and after. And they saw me go to meetings every day, apply these 12 recovery principles to my life, and they saw how my life changed and how I learned how to react differently to living life on life terms. Okay? So we are a family that goes around the country, individually or collectively, to let people know that through addiction, mental illness, and all its associated behaviors, there is restoration. So we talk about prevention, intervention, and restoration. Okay? And what I did not get to do with my children, I now get to do with my 8 grandchildren. Yes, a ripple effect. So we're going to be talking about that more too. I want to close my introduction, if you will, with being prepared. Being prepared through the 12 recovery principles to take care of 7 family members that were on hospice. And 3 at one time. Yes, 3 at one time. 3 at one time. And so with what's going on in the world today, with this COVID-19 pandemic, and how people cannot share with their loved ones who are transitioning because of this. I can imagine what they're going through, because I was almost unavailable to help my 7 family members transition. But it was because of the 12 recovery principles that I learned how to accept death, deal with death, talk about death. And guess what? For me, it's just a transition. But how did I learn that? Through the 12 recovery principles. Remember, we started off by saying and agreeing with Dr. Scott Allison that the serenity prayer is what helps us. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yes. And with everything that's going on with this pandemic, many of us need to learn and internalize and implement the wisdom behind the serenity prayer. And these 12 recovery principles are going to help us to do that. And finally, I am an author. Yes. I kept a journal the first 4 years of my recovery. And from 1990 to 1993, my first 4 years in recovery, I kept a journal off and on. Yes. To talk about the transition of leaving the world of addiction and its related behaviors, associated behaviors, fearful of living without drugs and alcohol or something to cope with life on life terms, but how to stay in today by utilizing and learning the 12 recovery principles one day at a time. And so in that journal that I wrote, I talked about everything that I was going through. My feelings, my thoughts, my behaviors, my attitude. Yes. Everything. I didn't know God was going to publish that journal in November of 2015, but he did. And so one of the things that I want you, starting, if not today, tomorrow, to start journaling what you are going through as we all go through this pandemic. Start keeping a journal. When you put the kids to bed, when you have some quiet time, when you're up early in the morning like me, go somewhere and just start writing what you're thinking, what you're feeling, your fears, your hopes, your dreams. Yes, start journaling. Because if we don't practice journaling what's inside of us and putting it out on paper, those things can begin to eat at us and fester. So that those things that I've been recovered from and have been dealing with these past 30 years, then I could be one among many who are now seeking to drink behind this pandemic, to increase domestic violence behind this pandemic, to exercise more not exercise, but to do more child abuse behind this pandemic, to do things that we don't normally do because we don't know how to process what's going on. I understand. I understand. Because someone helped me understand what's going on. But I had to practice being totally honest and totally transparent. You hear what I said? Practice. So keeping a journal wasn't very easy for me in the beginning. My sponsor in this 12-step program that I was a part of told me to start keeping a journal. And on the first page I wrote, my sponsor told me to keep a journal. Okay, here goes. That was one sentence on one page. The next day I wrote 2 sentences. The next day I wrote a paragraph. 2 days later, I wrote a couple paragraphs. And then guess what? I began to write more and more because I didn't want to resort back to where I had left and that addiction underneath a parked car 30 years ago. I did not want to go back there. But I didn't know what was in front of me, but it had to be a lot better than what was behind me. Mm-hmm. And even though we are all going through this challenge right now, people like us who are in recovery, we have been equipped. We have been equipped to deal with things like this, what's going on, because we have very little control. We only have control over our attitudes and what we do and what we say. We do have that control. We do have that power because it's given to us by utilizing and learning the 12 recovery principles. Yes. So I want you to start keeping a journal. After I sign off, and I want you to write down somewhere or tape record it or replay it, to start journaling what you are going through during this pandemic, how it is affecting not only you, your family, your livelihood, your spirit. Yes, yes, your spirit. This is only the vehicle that the spirit operates through. And had I not learned how to utilize the 12 recovery principles, I would be out drinking right now. I would be out drugging right now. I will be out there prostituting right now to make ends meet. Yes. Yes. Because I didn't know another way. And if you're going through those kind of thoughts and those kind of feelings, it is my obligation, it's my duty, it's my honor to let you know that I can share with you how I and many others learned how to deal with life on life terms. And to practice not letting it steal our joy, our peace, our sense of belonging. But to utilize that serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and most importantly, the wisdom to know the difference. Yes. So as you journal, write down any and everything that comes to your mind. Don't use an eraser either. Use an ink pen. Mm-hmm. Don't scribble it out, because you want to get what's inside out. And that journal can become your reference book or entry for the next day or the next month or the next year or even years later, like it has benefited me. Yes. My journal is called As It Was Written. Yes. As it was written. And so we will continue, and I will present to you what the 12 recovery principles are. And I want to share real quickly the 12 recovery principles. Okay. So you see, back there on day one of my recovery conversation, initiated by Dr. Scott T. Allison's article in Psychology Today, March 31st, 2020, and how the atmosphere in my makeshift studio, it didn't matter. Because when the spirit yielded me to hit that go live button, you can see the environment is different. And of course, I had not contracted COVID-19. And so it's a beautiful thing to go back and see where I was back then to where I am now. That's called the journey. That's called the process. And I will acknowledge that I was a hypocrite. Oh, yes, I was. I was a hypocrite. Mm-hmm. Because me sharing my experience, my strength, my hope, my wisdom, and all my affairs, and doing what the Spirit yielded me to do, to share that information with you. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there learned something, and they were excused, I'll say. They didn't contract COVID-19 based on the information that I was sharing. So you never know how God used you to help other people, and at the same time help yourself, even though you are in the process of not being hypocritical, right? And so that shows you back in April, with the onset of that first quarantine, isolation, stay-at-home order, how it can help people, but also inform people who may have the inability to deal with life on life terms. And so I thank God that I was able to present to you and to stay on the course with this information. All right. So let's get back to our recovery conversation. I will continue part 3 tomorrow with the overview of what I just spoke about. But for right now, we are going to share with you the information in terms of the overview, where step 1 needs to be taken 100% total acceptance without any reservations. Admitted we were powerless over COVID-19, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power or powers greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. That only means soundness of mind. Taking the CDC suggestions, looking at the tangible evidence, hearing and listening to experiences of others expressed in the group and your higher power. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. If that power or powers greater than you are working for your good and in your best interest, why wouldn't you want to continue to turn your will and your life over to that power or powers that we have identified are greater than us? All right, so now we have recovery principle number 4. This is where we made that searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. When, where, when, and how they were developed. Those character defects of being stubborn, pessimistic, self-centered, egotistical, how we develop those attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. In recovery principle number 5, with another person, we were able to identify the exact nature of those defects. And then in 6, we became entirely ready to have God remove all our defects of character. And then we went on to recovery principle number 7, where we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings, right? So I shared with you very briefly what that would look like. So when I identified here with recovery principle number 7, in 4, I identified the character defect of lying. Lying identified as a character defect. When I got to 5, that person and I got to the exact nature of lying, and we identified it was fear. Step 6, I presented myself with that defect of lying and asked and was entirely ready to have God remove that defect of character. And 7, on a regular basis, when I feel the need to lie again, am about to lie or have lied, I can ask God to remove that shortcoming of lying from me. So you can see that whenever we are presented with information, we can, again, use one of these steps to help get us to where we need to go. All right. So let me finish with the narrative by Jason Waller and how we were able to change the point of focus from alcohol and drugs to COVID-19. So yesterday we started the first session of applying COVID-19, and it says step 7 of the 12th step of COVID-19 is about getting rid of character defects and replacing them by practicing humility and spiritual principles. Working on the 7th step requires constant thoughtfulness and commitment to being honest, courageous, and humble regarding COVID-19. When working on steps 4 and 5, we discovered our assets and our shortcomings regarding COVID-19. With step 6, we became prepared to deal with these qualities so that in step 7, we could be ready to act regarding COVID-19. So let's break down COVID-19 based on Jason Waller's narrative here. And again, we're replacing the alcohol with COVID-19, all right? So it says, so here is the thing, right? Not wanting to put on masks, not wanting to wash our hands, not wanting to take the CDC suggestion is a big change for us. We know that, right? We think, by now that with the evidence of people dying and people getting sick, we're still in denial. Moving into step 7 actually involves us in the personal change of actively letting go of our shortcomings, actions, and feelings that are liabilities regarding COVID-19. This change requires effort and action. So when we think about COVID-19 and it talks about it's a big change, yes, it's a big change. And so many people are resistant to change. They are slow to change, and some refuse to change, right? And when it talks about identifying those character defects and getting into the exact nature and becoming willing to have God remove all those character defects, we ask in recovery principle number 7, like I did not do, but I'm suggesting that you do, right? When I was challenged to put the mask on in the beginning, I did. When it was suggested that I wash my hands, I did. When it suggested a social distancing, I did, but not consistently. That's why I'm a hypocrite. I did not do it consistently and on a continual basis, right? And so when I think about having these shortcomings and in the process of letting go this time around now, because I didn't apply these 12 spiritual principles to me, but guess what? I was sharing them with you, right? I was practicing all my other affairs, right, to some extent, but I wasn't completely doing it towards COVID-19. So it says here, this change requires effort and action. They say in the 12-step program, we can create habits 30, 60, 90 days before it become a habit, right? And so that's the same idea with COVID-19. Wearing the mask, washing our hands, social distancing, contact tracing, getting tested and getting vaccinated, all right? So it says here, simply asking for your shortcomings to be removed does not automatically make them go away. And that's why they say in recovery, we must be vigilant when we are wanting to stop the drink and the drugs and all that. If we want to prevent contracting COVID-19, then we have to be mindful that we have to simply pray to this God of your understanding to remove that shortcoming, all right? It goes on to say, it is up to you to be aware and make new choices. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to me to remove, right? To have these character defects removed when asked, right? It goes on to say, while working on the previous 6 steps, you have been stripping away age-old layers of denial, ego, self-centeredness, and other liabilities that consumed you when you were active, right? Before COVID-19 got here. And so when we look at the sudden change in some people's lives, the gradual change in others, right? And still others who are just resistant to change, what's going to happen in their decision-making process, right? So we see that when we talk about the age-old layers of denial, ego, right? Pride, all those character defects that are basically rooted in fear. But the 12 steps address our old and existing attitudes, ideas, and behaviors that are not working for us, really haven't worked for us, because the word defect in itself says something about wanting a part of my character defect. No, we do not, right? So when we talk about identifying these character defects of being resistant, taking things for granted, being defiant, then we can see when we are about to fall short or we are entertaining doing something differently, then we can use step 7 to ask this God of your understanding to remove that shortcoming, right? It goes on to say, in my experience, my higher power has never left me empty-handed. When I think of how I let my guard down, when I think of how I was so stubborn and so self-centered, I was all about image, right? Even though I learned to take off the mask. So the day one, I got my mask on and I used that to snatch it off. I take these dentures out and say, how you like me now, right? Being totally transparent. But I've learned through my process then and after contracting COVID-19, it is serious, because I could have very well met my death. I could have very well infected my children, my grandchildren, to the point where death may have came upon them. And I'm so glad that God spared my life and their lives as well. But it says here, by looking at our old attitudes, ideas, and behavior, we are replacing them with spiritual principles. So that need to not put on the mask, put on the mask. That need to say don't wash your hands, wash your hands. That need that says you ain't got the social distance, right? Do the things that you don't want to do that you need to do in order to save your life. Okay, and that's how simple we do it in the 12-step program. All right. So he goes on to say here, everything that I have lost was replaced with something better. I was asked to put down the drink and drug because my higher power wanted me to pick up something greater. This is humility to me. So what it's saying regarding COVID-19, right? For so long, we have been wearing all these masks. So long, we have had our old and existing attitudes, ideas, and behaviors. And for so long, we became comfortable and complacent with them. And so the moment that this pandemic reared its head and start slowly, infiltrating the lives of many people, and this is the hit around the world simultaneously. Oh my goodness. I in my lifetime, I have never experienced this before, but my higher power said this is not the first pandemic, nor will it be the last. But during this pandemic, there is a solution, and they are in the 12 steps. All right. So I want to end this section by saying it talks about the word humility. That's going to be the difference of you and I continuing, right, to be humble and to take the simple suggestions outlined in the 12 spiritual principles that will create that spiritual experience, bring about a spiritual awakening, increase my spiritual maturity to obtain that psychic change. And when we ask our higher power, whoever you choose to call him, when we ask, so by the time you get to step 7, you will have some information. You will have some tangible evidence in your own life that it's working. And the question becomes, are we still willing to be honest, open-minded? Are we? That's the how. H-O-W, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Are we willing to exercise humility? That when we see these character defects coming up, we feel it, we see our face, we see our hands, use that 7-step, humbly ask him to remove our shortcoming. That takes humility. That's being humble. Are you able to be humble? Or were you like me and thousands of others? It was through humiliation that we became humble. It was through humiliation that I contracted COVID-19. I had the information. I had the evidence in my life. And still, I fell short. And I needed to find out what was that all about. But in God's infinite wisdom, who would have known that by me sharing the 12 steps being applied to COVID-19, that I get the additional experience of having it, contributing to contracting it, and infecting members of my family. See, I tell you. So when we talk about humility, Jason Waller breaks it down like this, and we're going to, share more tomorrow. He says, humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. Humility is the solid foundation of all virtues. And this is from Confucius, right? When it comes to working our 7-step, the quality of humility really breaks down to having a reasonable perspective of yourself. That inventory that we talked about. Why are you so defiant? Why are you so resistant? Why are you being disobedient to taking these simple suggestions, right? And there's a reason. It is quite simply seeing the truth of your life and your place in the world. But when we apply COVID-19, we can see how that can create a vast change in our lives. All right. So we will continue the narrative tomorrow. I will show you part 3 of day 1 as well. So if God continues to allow us to be united, it'll be day 90 tomorrow, right? 90 days, right? And he breathes life into us and wake us up tomorrow, we will be reunited. But in the meantime, I suggest that you wash your hands, social distancing, right? Get tested. get vaccinated, right? Contact tracing and all of that, and wear that mask. Oh, yes, wear that mask. So let me ask you, are you in the prevention, intervention, or restoration mode of COVID-19? Will you be a part of the solution or a part of the problem, right? Will you contribute? Will you continue to be a role model to your loved ones so that they can watch what you do and imitate you wearing your mask, washing your hands? You have to lead by example. And so with that, let me show you me getting my vaccine shot one more time. And I will close out with my sponsors. All right. So here it is. Okay.
You're off.
Look at
This is my
the red
second
button.
shot of the Pfizer
All right.
vaccine.
Okay.
hmm
Let's
If
get
you're
you a
from
little
Missouri,
shot.
I'm showing you. All
Yes,
right.
dear. Yes, dear. Yes,
Here it is.
There you go.
Didn't feel a thing, really. Now, I didn't feel nothing that time. That was really unbelievable, right? So anyway, I wanted to say thank you and please be safe while I show you the back of the front of my book that I mentioned earlier. And we will be reunited tomorrow if it is God's will.